today's Whiteboard Leadership moment, I want to talk about a book I read called Predictable Success. It's by Les McCowan, who is a leadership guru, and he's done a great job talking about these things. Recently, a guy named Tony Morgan from the Unstuck group has written a Christian version or a church version of this. He uses it in his ministries. But I love this conversation because every church, every organization is somewhere on this paradigm, somewhere in this scale or somewhere on this bandwidth. Churches are existing. And so let me just walk through it and talk about what that looks like. The first is the organization that's in the early struggle scenario. All they have is a dream. They have a leader or a leadership team that have this vision. It could be a church plant that's meeting in someone's living room. There's 4 or 5 or 10 people there who are dreaming about one day having a church. The problem is they don't have the resources. They don't have the people. They don't have the people engaged. And so they're having to go from this early struggle and have to find resources. They have to find people. They have to get people to join in. And this early struggle is a difficult place where a whole lot of organizations don't make it past. But eventually some do, and they get to this place where it's just plain fun. They build the team is built, the team is healthy, the team is coalescing, they're all united in spirit, intent on one purpose, they're enjoying each other. The resources have now caught up with the ministry, and they're moving forward in health and expansion. And it's just a wonderful place to be. Now, in my church, it took us about 13 years to get there. We had a short stage of it early on in the church, and then we had another stage of it later on. And a lot of times transitions will slow you down and force you back to that stage where your resources are catching up. But fun was it was a fun time to be there. And then there's whitewater. Whitewater occurs when your expansion, your growth is outpacing your health, and you have to look at what you've been doing and say, that may have gotten us here, but it may not get us to the place we need to be. You have to change your systems. You have to change your policies. You have to change the decision-making power in your church. You have to give more power and push decisions down to a lower level. And leadership sometimes has a hard time doing this because they've made all the decisions, they've had all the power, everything has been centered around them, and now they have to push things down to empower other people, to give them ownership and authority in ministry, to figure out the systems that are going to work in this next season that may not be the systems that have worked up to this point in time. And hopefully get to the place where the systems are in the right place and the leadership's in the right place, everything's in the right place, the mission is clear, and the steps to the mission everyone understands that as well. You get to this place called predictable success, where it's healthy and it's growing and they're multiplying leaders and there's a sense of generosity and there's obvious what God is doing, and you have this wonderful place. I've had many seasons of predictable success where the right people were in the right seats on the bus, the vision was clear, the culture was healthy, it was a compelling vision of what to do in the future. So we had all that, and it's great. And that's kind of the peak of the mountain. And so you're moving up through whitewater, figuring out systems, but now you get to the other side, and you get to this stage called the treadmill. The treadmill, just by the sound of it, you can tell it's not exactly a happy time. Maybe you've lost momentum. Maybe things aren't going as well as they used to. You had this crest, and now you're coming to the side, and it takes a whole lot more energy to get back up to this predictable success area. In some cases, it's because you have the wrong systems. In some cases, it's because you have too many systems. And the systems are now controlling the people. The systems are actually, they're rules rather than tools, and they're stopping you from doing what you need to do. And you have to revamp the systems, and sometimes you have to move different people into different places in the organization to get back to the place where you're functioning well, where the creativity is high once again, where you're not trusting in the things that got you here from yesterday, but you're looking at new, innovative ways to do ministry. The next one after the treadmill is what they call the big rut. This is for the organization that hasn't realized they're in a rut, and maybe they were running really high in attendance and high in life change and things like that, and they started going to the other side and then said, "We're going to be okay. We're going to be all right." But it went on for year after year, and now they find themselves in this huge rut. If you go to the Yukon, you'll see a sign on some of the roads because of the way the weather is there. It says, "Choose your rut wisely because you're going to be in it for the next 900 miles. So be very careful about these big ruts that you get into in ministry. You may be, a method could be a rut, or a style could be a rut, or something that it used to work, but it doesn't work anymore. Your cultural intelligence is being challenged because you think you're relevant, but you're not relevant anymore, and you're trying to bring back the good old days. That's how you know you're in the big rut. You're talking about yesteryear. The glory days are not ahead of us. The glory days are behind us. And you're trying to bring back yesteryear. And it simply can't happen. The final stage is what they call the death roll. This is the organization of the church that doesn't realize it, but they've now gotten to the place where they can't even pay the utilities. Their whole goal back in the big rut was survival is success. If we just survive, and they paid off the building, and they've got a huge auditorium that has 300 seats in it, but there's only 27 of them left, and they think that's success because the building's paid off, and they've forgotten the mission. They've forgotten, and they're well on their way to the death roll because they're aging and they're not reaching the community anymore. All these different things are happening in life of the church and the ministry, and so they've got to start asking legacy questions. What will be our legacy? For example, I've seen churches actually give their buildings to young, vibrant church plants, or sharing the buildings with young, vibrant church plants, and investing in their ministry, and not just the own ministry of the church. Partnership and investment in the next generation that can reach the community. And it's just a wonderful thing when churches realize and ask the question, what is our legacy? It's kind of like when you're grandparents, you're no longer concerned about yourself, and even your kids, you're not too concerned about them, but the grandkids are everything. You're trying to figure out, how can I make sure they know Jesus? How can I make sure they experience God? And you're just focused so much on a couple generations ahead of you. That's a healthy way to have a legacy in a church. What I'd love for you to do is think through these things in your ministry and just describe yourself. Where are we at in our ministry? Are we at the early struggle side of things? Maybe you're a church plant. Are we at the fun side where your resources have caught up with your vision and you're able to accomplish the vision? Are you in whitewater where your systems aren't quite where they need to be? They're all relational, and now they need to become non-relational systems, and other people need to be able to train people in those systems. Are you in predictable success? And if you are, just celebrate the season you're in, but just recognize that the mountain you're on, it could tip to one side or the other. Are you on your treadmill? Maybe some of your systems are holding people back. Maybe some of your leaders are holding people back, and you have to make a hard decision. I pray that God gives you wisdom in those things. Maybe you're in the big rut, and maybe you're on the death roll. Regardless, God has a great future for the church, and you just need to be a part of it and pray, God, what should we do? What's the courageous and wise thing to do? And just do it. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.